last program, we found out we don't speak the same language. We need a pure language that we found out. It's very fascinating. Well, today we're going to enter a new subject. The Bible really has two mysteries about it. One is called the mystery of God, and this is what our really overall purpose is we're trying to discover who and what God is, right? What is he and who is he? That's a mystery. In Colossians 1:27, it tells us that the mystery of God is Christ in you, the hope of glory. So that answers that question. The mystery of God is Jesus. If you see Jesus and all he said, did, and what he does, and if you do the same and live the life he lived, you're living your life like God. Because that's the mystery of God. That's how we're going to discover who and what God is, which is our main purpose overall. All right? But secondly, there's another mystery. And we found out about that mystery. It's when we take what is true, but we misinterpret it. We interpret it through human reasoning, through the human mind, through our own efforts. Instead of letting God revealing it to us, we go ahead and we try to reveal it to ourselves. We play the role of God, and it's called Mystery Babylon the Great. So today we want to take a look at what is Babylon? What does that mean? Why is it Babylon? Not only what is it, but how did it become Babylon? All right? Well, to see that God gets very angry about Babylon. He doesn't like Babylon because it confuses us. It confounds us. And we know most of us have heard in churches and theologians and whatnot. We've read about it in the news. Babylon just means confusion. Why does it confuse us? Well, what is it about Babylon that makes us so confused? Well, we have to go back to Revelation 17 and verse 1, where it tells us about this Babylon. And there came in verse 1, and there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials. That's to pour, ready to give it to us. See, God's angry. He's ready to spank. And talked with me, saying unto him, Come here, I will show unto you the judgment, or the final guilt, of the great whore. She's called the whore, who sits upon many waters. And we found out from Isaiah 40 that it says that if you put all the waters together, that all nations are like one drop. So this is talking to the whole world. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. They've intermarried. They try to get along into one world rule. They think that they can make one world rule, which is a joke. What it ends up is it's Babylon, or confusion. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk. They can't tell one thing from the other. It's like taking too much drugs. You get on a high. Everything's okay. In reality, everything's falling apart, but it's great. You get on different drugs, and some make you higher than others. Higher means just up in heaven. You think you're in heaven, and you're really in hell. You're miserable. You're terrible. You have no idea. That's why when I used to go and take people to, when I was in high school, we were on the football team. We knew we had to play football. So always, if we had a party, I'd never take those days they would drink beer. See, some of them. I wouldn't drink beer because I'd remember the fun I had, and they never remember a thing what they did. I went to the party and I had a ball. I had a good time. They went home and they didn't even know they were at the party. All right? So this is what happens when you get drunk with the wine or alcohol of her fornication. That's why you have to drink liquor extremely in moderation so you don't get tipsy. Tipsy means to fall over. That's what it means. So he carried me away in the spirit. Oh, so what John, who wrote this book of Revelation, this is a vision he saw. Into the wilderness. Remember I told you spend more time meditating, get off by yourself, be at peace with yourself, get in a beautiful area, maybe in the woods or by a lake or a stream, and just meditate. All right? I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. There was a beast there. Well, a beast is something that could eat you, whether it be from alligator or to a leopard or a lion or whatever. Full of names of blasphemy. That means they all pretended to be God. Having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple like royalty. She was wealthy. She was noble. She was a queen, called the Queen of Heaven in the Bible. And decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations, all wrong thinking, completely confused and drugged and drunk, just like Noah was from his vineyard. And filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written. Mystery. So this is a system. Nobody knows where they are. They're just plastered. They're drunk. They're drugged. Babylon the Great, the mother, that's the life giver of harlots. What she produces, she doesn't produce good people. She produces confused people and abominations of the earth, everything that could destroy you. That's what this mystery Babylon is. That's why it causes confusion. Remember, we spoke in the last program that the mother is the nutritionist. She's the one that's supposed to nurture you. She's the one who's supposed to keep you safe. She's the one who's supposed to give you everything you need for your growth and a healthy life. So we're ready now to see what causes this Babylon. What caused this confounding or confusion? It comes from 2 words, Babylon. And we want to check into those words and see what they mean, because they're going to tell us what causes the problem. And I think you're going to be very amazed to find out what and who Babylon, the mystery great whore, really is. There's all kinds of Babylons in the Bible. Start way from the time of the flood, continuing right into all the way to our present time. Because we find out you always got to start with the seed, right? And then you get a root from that root. And then you get a branch. And then from the branch you get the leaves. And to the leaves you get the fruit. And whether it's good or bad depends on the fruit you produce, right? Is it good corn or bad corn? Is it a hybrid? Hybrids can't reproduce, you know. They can't make life. They always have to have the seed. And that's why it's better not to eat hybrid food, because it's short on nutrition. Doesn't he have, who knows, it might be the cause of allergies. Just eating wrong. You better go to your dietitian and find out. So going on, we find out in Genesis, we got to go back to where the whole Babylon began, this mystery. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. So they all knew how to speak to each other. They knew what to say, and they sort of thought they comprehended it. No, they didn't comprehend it, because we found out it wasn't a pure language, was it? It was a language that caused confusion. But here's why it caused confusion. Verse 2, and it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east. Now, the earth was different in that time, you have to understand. The earth until the day of Peleg was a much smaller arena. The area was far smaller. That's why they said the earth was flat. Because it means, and we're going to find out and read it right here, it means it was flat. We go on, and it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain. You know what a plain is? A flat field. That's what a plain is. In the land of Shinar. And they dwelt there. Well, we got to go back to the root with the definition. What does Shinar mean? Shinar merely means a plain. That's all it means. It just means a flat surface. It's like if you went to Iceland. It's a flat surface. It's a plateau, we call it. It's one huge plateau, 300 miles wide. And we call it Iceland. It's one flat piece of ground. And that's what Shinar means. Now, I want you to picture something at this time. Here's this mass group of people all together in this one place. And basically, from what we call today, even though it excludes some of the Mediterranean, because more and more I'm really getting convinced that the Atlantis, that disappeared suddenly, was the Mediterranean Sea. It became the Mediterranean Sea because a host of volcanoes and tsunamis. So if we take from the Pillars of Hercules, which is the northern western tip of Spain and the south, okay, all the way to Ethiopia and all the way to India, that was the plain. That was the plain. Now, let's consider what we're reading here. And the word Shinar in the Hebrew means exactly that. It means you took all those people, right? All of them. From between those parameters I gave you, from Hercules to India to Ethiopia, and you fill it with all these people, and they all say the same, have the same language, can converse and understand each other. And we put all this massive group of human population together, and what do you think when everybody gets talking? What do you go do when you get in a party in a little room and some people are drinking beer and others are on other drugs? Remember, they were having a cocktail party. Envision a cocktail party in one room, a flat room, and everybody's got a glass in his hand, and they're all pretty lightheaded. Everything's okay. All their troubles have passed, and they're laughing and they're joking. Of course, tomorrow morning they won't remember anything they said. Now you know what Babylon is. And that's exactly what it means. It's broken down from two words. To babble, have you ever heard the word babble? He's always babbling, right? It means you never stop talking. Well, if you're on high and really at it, you don't stop talking. You're just babbling. But it's interesting. At this one flat plain piece of land called the land of Shinar, we find out that there's a kingdom there ruled by a gentleman named Nimrod. And he was half black and half white. And he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. He really knew how to get out and kill these animals so the people could eat. But not only that, he was mighty and powerful. And if you didn't do what he told you to do, they liquidated you. All right, now I want you to close your eyes, think in your head, and think of this big, huge plain. loaded with all these people controlled by one person, and you decide and say, hey, this massive group of people, if we don't get together and have one world government, we're going to end up all broken apart in different pieces. So let's build a tower. All right? So the Tower of Babel is built. It's one, I want you to hear this, one religion with many gods. Because you see, every person in that massive group of people had their own idea. If I asked you, how do you worship your God? You're going to tell me a different way that you worship your God than I worship my God, right? And the next one's going to tell his way that he worships God. And the next one's going to tell his way of worshiping God. And the next one, and Nimrod said, that's okay. That's okay. But we'll all have this tower that leads us to God's house, the one who made everything, called the sky god, and left us. And it's called Babel. And that's what the word Babel in Hebrew means. It means gateway to God's house. In spite of this confusion, or Babylon, we found that. So you see, now we're starting to get the problem. And this was the first Babylon. This is what existed from the beginning. And we find out that they were gathered together in this flat plain called Shinar. And the problem was there were too many people in a small place. So they all had different ideas. And here's what God, the conclusion he came to, why he had to divide the nations, why he had to make continents and islands and separate all these different cultures who really had different ideas of who God was. Remember, our overall purpose is to find out who and what is God. So really, here's what problem ensued in the land of Shinar. There was just too many people in one place with different ideas. And so God told what would happen. So the Lord came down in Genesis 11 and verse 5, and the Lord came down to see this city that had the tower called Babel, or the gateway to God's house. That's what it was. And he said, the Lord said, the people is one. They're all united. It's one world government. And they have all one language. So they understand, sort of, each other. All right? And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them. They'll be able to do anything and everything that what? Which they have imagined to do. That's Babylon. So I tell you, it's like going to a party with a lot of drinkers, and they all get high or stonied, and they look at each other. And they have no idea what they're talking about, but boy, do they know and say what they think. So what Babylon really gets down to is to babble or just cause confusion, and it means to confound. But remember, this was a mother, the great harlot. All her children turn out the same way. So it goes back to Eve. She was the beginning of Babylon. Surprising, isn't it? So then she got her name Eve. And we say Eva for the feminine, right? And all it means the mother of all those who live, who want to go around and take control or give their own ideas. That's what it means. The mother of all. But when we say the mother of all, we even go beyond that. We found out it's the mother of everybody who was made from the dust of the earth. Because we're made from the earth with water sprinkled on top. That's why God had in the beginning, before there was rain, he caused a mist or dew to form. Because without water, you can't have growth. So before there was rain, because the clouds weren't made yet. And without the clouds, they don't get cool enough for them to drop the water. That's why I always laugh when people tell me we're going to run out of water. We will? Well, the day you stop seeing clouds, we'll run out of water. As long as there's clouds, you will have water. Because they're going to go so high, they're going to get so cold, the cold has to drop the water. That's how it works. It's called rain. Oh, people. Such simple things, and we make them so hard. But I can't blame you. It took me 80-some years just to get to this place. I hope you don't have to wait that long. You're younger, you can learn faster and sooner and better. God be with you for it, I'll tell you. But you see, the problem of Babylon, notice verse 7, here's Babylon. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. That's Babylon. It means you babble and you keep going on. So we got to stop it. God says we got to slow this process down. We got to get them off the high. They're flying in the atmosphere someplace with ideas that aren't real. They feel good. They think everything's okay, and they're killing themselves. They're killing themselves. You're making your own death. That's why I've told you in the past, I've said, it's a funny thing. We make these ridiculous statements that we're living longer today than any past generation. Oh, no, we don't. No. We just give us chemicals or drugs to make us live longer. You take away those drugs and you're dead. You'll be dead at 40. You're going to die sooner if you didn't take drugs. That's why that doctor has to write it in Latin, because you might misuse the drug. And we do misuse prescription drugs, don't we? Even when the doctor gives it to us, we misuse them, don't we? I mean, guys like Rush for his back was taking prescription drugs, and he got out of control. He couldn't give them up. Isn't that amazing? Here's a guy with a pretty good head and thinks pretty straight. Frankly, he was determined enough to give it up. So we don't live longer today. We just keep ourselves moving. And I don't know, that's the best you could call it, because if you're high and you're on drugs, believe me, you're just moving. You have no idea what you're doing. Only part of you is living. The other part is already dead. I'm amazed how many people get arthritis at 40 today. When I was growing up in the 20s and 30s, we knew what arthritis was, but it hit old people. See, I tell you, you could take true things, real things, and because they seem to happen more often and do good, you think you found good, and you haven't found good. You've just put it off, but you put it off at not being a whole person. You're not well. You're not complete. You don't have a sound mind. I tell you, these easy, simple things I'm explaining from biblical history, they're very basic and simple. I always go down to the crux of the thing. So now we know what Babylon is, don't we? We realize that Babylon is a completeness of not being whole. It's less than being complete. That's what it means. And God hates Babylon because he wants you to be whole. He wants you to be well. He wants you to be at rest, and he wants you to know what you're doing.